Hey guys, my name is Em, and thanks so much for watching our first episode of Break the Glass. Break the Glass is going to be this series of YouTube videos, just about 10 minutes long each time, just talking about how cool wine is and how much there is to explore in the world of wine. So we named it Break the Glass because the goal of this show is to break the stigma of wine being this super snooty, pretentious, unapproachable subject. Like, I want you to be able to go into this wine store, whatever one you like to go to, whether it's Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, your grocery store, or maybe you have a small little independent wine shop that you like to go into. But the goal of the show is to make you confident in going in to that wine shop, asking questions, finding out like what you want to drink and what you like, and just getting a really good bottle of wine. Before I learned so much about wine, I was 20 years old and I was drinking Franzia, and I was lucky to get my hands on a bottle of Barefoot if I could. And I knew nothing about wine at all. I thought it was gross, but I just hadn't had the right bottle of wine yet. And then when I was 21, I was able to go study abroad in Mendoza, Argentina. Little did I know was Mendoza the 5th largest wine region in the world. And that's where I totally fell in love with wine. I actually worked at a coffee shop beforehand, before I did my study abroad. And this coffee shop was a half coffee and a half wine shop. And so it was like this super interesting combo of things. My boss, he really loves coffee and he loves wine, so he decided, why not just create a store that incorporates his two favorite beverages? So I was a barista and I just sold wine. Like, I knew nothing about it. People would come and they would ring it up, and I would just ring them up and say, have a nice day. And I would look at the price tag and be like, okay, $20 to $40, these people are crazy. I am never gonna be that interested in this drink, and I promised myself I would never spend that much money on a bottle of wine. Well, little did I know, I do it about every night now. But I didn't realize how cool wine was. I just hadn't had the right bottle yet. And then I went to Argentina, I studied abroad, and I just was totally immersed in that wine world, and I absolutely loved it. Wine culture is so cool. I remember my first night in Mendoza. My host mom had me sit down with her and her son, so my host brother, and we just shared a bottle of Malbec. Malbec is Argentina's most popular grape. Malbec is the grape, and that's what Argentina is known for. And Mendoza, where I was living, is the #1 producer of Malbec in the world. And so we were just sharing this amazing bottle of wine around a table. I had never even heard of what Malbec was before going there that night. And it was just incredible how we were sitting around this table, eating this amazing steak and just connecting over this really good food with this really good bottle of wine. And I just loved every bit of it, and that's when everything clicked for me. So pretty shortly after having that first bottle of wine, that Malbec with my host family, I always call it my gateway bottle. That's when, I realized how awesome wine was. I started going to tastings, and our resident director down in Mendoza told us, you guys need to go to these wineries yourself and try this wine for yourselves. So he even set up a few tastings for us. I got to see everything from, a small little family winery from this family that moved from France because they couldn't afford the land there anymore. So they came to Mendoza to make cheaper wine. And then he even he made sure that we went to go see, a huge large-scale production winery that probably makes about, hundreds of thousands of cases a year. Those types of bottles that you can go to the grocery store and see them everywhere. So he had us see both sides of it, and both are cool, but there's just like a lot to learn by going and actually seeing them yourselves. So not only did I take advantage of the wineries there and, taste as much as I could, visit them as much as I could. There was a whole weekend where I was biking around from winery to winery with all my friends, and we were just probably shouldn't have been on a bike, but biking around, just hitting up as many wineries as we could since we didn't have cars, and just trying everything we could. And then on top of that, I also took a class while I was in Mendoza to make sure that I could learn as much about wine and wine tourism as I could while I was still there immersed in all of the wine culture. So after all of that wine tasting every weekend, and then also taking that course while I was still in Mendoza, I was just completely hooked on the drink. I loved how you're sitting around a table eating this food with great company, and there's this bottle of wine in the middle of the table as the centerpiece, and you're drinking this drink that comes from this country, this village, made by this specific winemaker at the specific year that it was bottled. And it's this drink that transports you back in time, and it's a great way to bond with people and just create like a great sense of community over the drink. So after my study abroad in Argentina, I came back to the States and went back to that coffee and wine shop that I was working at, and immediately told my boss that I needed to get put on the other side of the shop. I wanted to learn as much about wine as I could, and with his scope and his knowledge, I knew that I would learn a lot more upon my return from Mendoza. I did realize though that it's going to be a lot harder to get that, $10 high quality bottle of wine that we have here in the US, because things are more expensive here, and unfortunately we're paying for that importation price as well. And in the US it just goes through leaps and bounds. It goes from winemaker to importer to distributor to finally in the retail shop, or even further on if you're buying it at a restaurant. So there's just a lot of extra prices that we have to pay here in the US that make it harder for us to get a really good high quality bottle of wine. But they do exist, they're out there. You can pay $20 or less for an amazing bottle, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So the first episode, I figured, since I'm sharing my story about my time in Mendoza, I figured what better way to do it than with Susana Balbo. So Susana Balbo, she is the leading female winemaker in Mendoza. She was actually friends with my host mom too, so I was able to learn a little bit about her just by being around the house, and it was just, it's a small world. And so I really wanted to share her bottle of wine. She was the first female winemaker as well in Mendoza, so that's pretty exciting. I really like that. And this is her Malbec. It's a 96% Malbec with 4% of Cabernet. So it's pretty much 100% Malbec, and that's what Argentina is known for. So I wanted to make sure for our first episode that we were gonna try this bottle from Susana. And this bottle goes for about $26 retail, but let's talk about it for a little bit. Normally I would say 26 is a little bit higher than what I would spend when I go into, your wine shop, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's. You can still get great wine there. There's no problem going to Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's, they do this thing where they purchase from wineries directly, so it takes out the importation and distribution costs in the US that we normally have to pay a high sticker price for. So they could be a really good option to, get a great bottle of wine. So Susana, I'm gonna show you a photo of her winery that she has. It's right in the Andes. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's this beautiful backdrop of mountains in her winery. That's like the other half of the fun about wine tasting. You get to go directly to these beautiful places. I don't think I've ever seen a picture of her winery and thought that it looked ugly. They're all beautiful. So wine tasting is just so fun. If you can get yourself to a winery, you absolutely should. So this is her Malbec. It tastes just like Argentina, which is another such a great thing about wine. You smell it and you're transported back to that place where you tried it first. It's absolutely delicious. The only thing that would make it better is if I had a really salty steak that was slow cooked for 3 hours right here next to me. I mean, we could talk about tasting notes and what flavors you should be smelling as you're smelling it, but everything's so different for each person. I would get a little bit of smoky cherries when I smell this, and this tastes like a dark plummy fruit. But other than that, I don't really throughout this show, I'm not going to get into details about notes, because it's tastery sensors are different for everybody. So I'm going to let you figure that out on your own. Although both you and I know that we probably can't be drinking $25 wine every single night. Well, at least not on my budget. So that's why we have other stuff to drink. So this is a Malbec Rosé from Mendoza, made from the exact same winemaker as the Malbec that I just tried. Only difference though is that this is about $10 cheaper. Actually, I think it sells for $14 at Whole Foods, so it's even more than $10 cheaper than Susana's Signature Malbec. So the way that she makes this wine is this is her Signature Malbec. It's amazing, right? But it's $26. And she takes the highest grapes, the highest quality grapes that she has. She picks them, and then she makes this Malbec from that. And that's why it's her signature blend, and that's why it's gonna go for $25 or more depending on where you get it. What she does though, so she makes the red wine, and the red wine's sitting in a tank fermenting, but what happens is you squeeze the juice out of the grapes, and then the grape skins sit at the top of the tank. And you don't get the red color in the wine from the juice. You only get the red color from the wine when the skins are sitting at the top. So the interaction of the juice, like grape juice in the tank with the skin at the top, you're gonna get more color of the red at the top. At the bottom is all this pretty pink stuff. So what she does is she bleeds off that pink juice from the bottom of the tank, bottles it, and makes a super affordable $13 to $15 rosé that you can drink at any time, anywhere. It could be, this, let's see. It smells amazing. It's insane. This rosé, it's still, it's rosé, but it's full-bodied. It has some depth to it, and it's just really, really, really delicious. And you could have this with a burger, you could have this with food, or you could just be sitting outside in your backyard by the pool, because it's so refreshing, and it's a nice way to cool down. Or, maybe you just had a really shitty day, and you just want a glass of wine, which is why I love wine so much, because it's such a versatile drink. The same woman made both of these bottles, and they're made from the same grapes, but there's a $10 price difference. And so it doesn't matter if you're trying to impress someone and you're going to a dinner party and you want to pull out the big guns and bring a really nice bottle of wine, or if you just want something for yourself because it's just a really delicious and really yummy drink, there's nothing wrong with that too. And there is really amazing affordable wine out there. And I got them both from Whole Foods last week. This guy was 26 and this guy was 14. But they're both just amazing, and you can get them. I'm pretty sure there's Whole Foods wherever you go. So I think you guys could be able to get these guys as well. I would totally suggest them. Susana's an amazing person, and these are amazing bottles of wine, and they go with pretty much any scenario. And so I really hope you liked the first episode. Next week we're going to be talking about, the difference between Old World wine and New World wine. So for example, that's, you see, Pinot Noir from California, perfect, that's New World. It's easy to read, easy to understand, but then if you want a Pinot from France, you're not gonna see Pinot on the label. So I'm gonna hint at that for now. We'll talk about it next week when this comes out. But have a good night, guys, and cheers.